Hey everybody, Happy New Year. It's
Happy
2020.
New Year!
Hell yeah. I'm here.
Yeah!
I'm here with Randy Gambler. They call him. I forget. Sorry. I already messed that up. I'm just excited it's the new year.
Yeah, for real, absolutely.
2025. 2024 sucks. Get out of here. It is
Get
the
out
new
of
year. It
here.
is New Year's Day. We are literally sitting in 2025. We are not recording this beforehand. That would be
Oh,
stupid. We are dedicated.
what?
We are dedicated badasses. And we got here on the first day of fucking New Year's. And we're like, we're going to record
That's
a
right.
goddamn podcast. Randy, take it away. Who are you? Even though I know we've already introduced you.
So I am C. Randy Gamble, also known as CandyGambler. I'm this old person that used to live in Ohio and now lives on the East Coast, and I get to hang out with you guys when I go to cons. If you've seen me around, you've probably seen me with my partner, Dr. Spookums, PhD, aka Ken. Yes, that one. The
Hell yeah.
Garfield. Yeah, that one. That's
Shouts
my partner.
out,
We
Daddy
live together.
Spookums. Hell yeah. Shouts out. Oh my goodness. I know you and I have been talking about having y'all on the podcast, so I'm really happy for y'all to be on here. And it's funny because I think the one thing that you and I threw a line of like, welcome to both of these podcasts where we talk about, anime convention, 30 shit. Yours is mostly, which I like to say, because y'all have been introduced once or twice here through Ken talking about during switching somebody's panel's name. It's going with the Smasher Pass panel. You were the lore master, and being the lore master specifically on D&D monsters. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
That is correct. So it's the Smasher Pass D&D Monster Edition 18 plus panel. We've done it a couple times. We did it at Pulp Cult the first time. We just did it at AAC back in October. They've been a lot of fun. It's as much shenanigans as you can imagine. Ken is the host. He does an amazing job. And I am his lore master. So when there's a question, because basically how it works is you get to come up to the front. We're going to show you a Dungeons and Dragons monster, and you get to pick smash or pass, how many drinks you need to have, any details. But a lot of times, because these D&D monsters are kind of esoteric, weird, strange, definitely ugly looking, people don't know what they are, and they're like, what even am I looking at? And so I'm the lore master. I'm there with 20 years of D&D experience to tell you why you should stay as far away from these monsters as humanly possible, but why you might want to get a little something on the side. But and answer. Sometimes people have very specific questions.
Yep. So I know for the first time I attended the Smasher Pass panel this past AAC after the podcast I had with Ken, and yeah, it was a boatload of fun. I had so much fun. Listening to you talk about it too was really cool because it was just like, what is this? It's like people ask me like, what is this intelligence level? And it's just like, not really. Or was that one thing that was like all made of glass entirely, and it was just like, yeah, no, it's just glass. Anything else? No, it's just glass. They were like, glass.
That's the thing we run into sometimes is Ken picks the monsters and doesn't always consult with me first. So sometimes it's like, yeah, this thing is made out of glass and bamboo, and if you touch it, it's going to shred your flesh off.
Yeah, and it's like,
so smash or pass.
You can eat the alcohol.
It was a hard pass on that one.
Exactly. I think we're all just like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm still made out of skin. I'm good.
Yeah,
like, I want to have that left. Yeah.
So 20 years of D&D experience.
That's right.
So, I'm really honest with you. I don't know much about D&D. I really don't. So it's really cool to have someone like with y'all background to be talking about something like this, especially all information. Sorry I interrupted you, but you were saying you've been on and off on that.
You're doing great. So I started playing tabletop role-playing games, which is what Dungeons and Dragons is, in 1996. And then I've played it more on than off, although I'm on a bit of a break right now just because we moved and, getting life together. And unfortunately, we're all adults and we have jobs and we don't have all the time in the world to play D&D for 12 hours a day. But sure, it would be nice. I always say that if you want to know about Dungeons and Dragons, I always say that it is the second most fun you can have with a group of consenting adults. It's a great time. But just to break it down, what it is, for people who've maybe just heard of it, it is, getting more popular these days with some people. Definitely friends I have will ask me and be like, "Oh, I know you do that. What is it?" So just to kind of give you an overview, so Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game, which is kind of like two games wearing a trench coat stacked on top of each other. So a tabletop game is short for tabletop wargaming, and that's how D&D started out. That's where you take those little miniatures and you put them on a map and they move around and you can do combat and you roll dice. That's the mechanical part of Dungeons and Dragons. Figuring out what the dice mean, what kind of abilities your wizard has or your fighter or whatever you're doing there with the rolls. The other part is the role-playing game. Role-playing games, very simply, are you take on a role, usually of a single character, sometimes multiple. It is, when you're kids, when you're playing on the playground and be like, yo, I want to play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I call Raphael, and your buddy's like, cool, I love Leo. And, I'm going to be the Shredder. It is exactly that. That's it. It's just that.
Yeah.
So you're going to be whatever your character is. And I've played systems where I've been an elven wizard, I've been a dwarven fighter, I've been an otherworldly entity, I've been a demigod, I've been a superhero, I've been Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, all kinds of characters. You can play whatever you want depending on the system or how open your group is. You don't necessarily need rules to play a role-playing game, but when you put the tabletop on top, now you've got a structure to build from. And so you can have all these books. You don't necessarily need them though. You can play them right over a two-way conversation just like this. A lot of people play online these days, and of course the best is in person with your buddies around the table, having drinks and snacks, eating together, hanging out, chatting, and just having a great time role-playing. Getting involved in, what would my character do? I got to think of, how are they different from me and how would they approach this situation? Knowing they know what they do as opposed to just being yourself. But you can also role play yourself too. I've done that a few times as well. Like I said, it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it for anybody, especially if you love just hanging out with your friends. And that's the main thing. You want to start, how do I get started in D&D? Make some friends. Talk about it with them. See if you can get into it. It's free. The basic rules are online. Almost every system's basic rules are online these days, legally for free. You don't have to steal them or whatever. But
no fun. What?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, do what you can. But you can start it, you can play it, and there's lots of good information on different websites, YouTube, things like that.
Yeah.
Too as well. But I recommend jumping in both feet with your friends and just seeing what happens. Have a good time.
So it's funny with me is I've only had like cursory knowledge to D&D, and speaking about what you're saying is like when I did try doing like a few campaigns with some friends, it was funny for me especially. I mean, I'm local himbo for a reason. I'm kind of dumb, so some of that stuff was really like daunting to me. Like a friend of mine was just like, "Look, here's like the book. Look through it." I'm just like, "Oh my god, it's a book like this thick, man. I gotta read all this shit." Technically, yes. Technically, no. But it's good to kind of have yourself some knowledge. And I think one of the best things that ever happened to me recently was a friend of mine came up to me and was like, yo, I want to try it again. I'm like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. And I know I've already read some of the books because I just wanted to read about like the combat or like what race is this or what class is this, what they're able to do. Sometimes, God damn it, I hit myself in the freaking thing. Someone scratch my head doing this all night. But I think the coolest thing lately was I actually went on YouTube and it was like, how to build a fucking cleric. And they were like, oh, you want a cleric? Okay, well, there's like 5 different types of cleric you can do. You can do X, Y, and Z. And I was like, all right, maybe and I was like, I'll be driving, I'll be listening to it. I'd be like, all right, because I want to be like somebody's healer. But I also want to do some damage, just not just to be like some squishy nerd getting beat up. But I don't think we ever got a chance to start playing. So every time, that's usually like I feel like the story goes with every D&D campaign is, all right, we're all gonna talk about the rules, have some day 0, and then we're gonna tell each other we cannot meet up this day, and then we keep prolonging that for about 2 weeks, and then we just never talk about it ever again.
Yeah, that's the hardest part of Dungeons and Dragons is getting your friends together for a few hours on a day ever. It's the constant nightmare. It's the worst part. It's the only part that sucks to me. I love all the rest of it.
Yeah, you're
I will
saying.
say, going back to talking about like rules and stuff like that, absolutely don't be daunted. You did a smart thing looking at videos. The other thing you can do is a lot of people get nervous, not just about the rules, but man, how do I do this role playing? I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to be stupid. I'm going to be silly. What's a good example?
Mm.
What does a real session look like? There's a lot of live plays right online. Go to YouTube. One of the most popular ones is Critical Role. They've even got an animated show. They're working on a second animated show. They've got a lot going on. They've been doing it for a while. I was one of their original mods back when they were on Geek and Sundry.
What?
Because I
Really?
was one of, yeah, for real. I
Oh
started
shit.
as one of Felicia Day's Twitch mods, and she of course had her channel Geek and Sundry, and she got the Critical Role guys interested, and they popped on, and so I started as one of their original mods. I'm not for them anymore, but I was there in the early days. It was
Hell
a
yeah.
little janky and hand-drawn maps, and before there were very many miniatures, and it wasn't all flashy with cool stuff like they have now. But that's a great show to jump in. That's where I got the nickname CandyGambler. Was from Felicia Day,
That's so
because
cool.
she couldn't say my name. So it's just CandyGambler, and I like that. A lot of people know me by that.
I don't blame Felicia Day for not being able to say that, because at the top of the show I was like, this is Randy Gambler. What's going on? He knows they know when to hold them, they know when to fold them, they know when to walk away, and know when to run. Yeah. You know?
That's right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're ever feeling like, I'm nervous about this, I'm not sure. It's another thing you can do. Tune into, one of those, live play D&Ds, and even, it doesn't have to be Critical Role or one of the more famous ones. It can be a smaller stream that might be a little more comfortable. Just to watch and kind of see, how the game is played, just to take those nerves off of you, so you kind of know what to expect. But like I said, I wouldn't even really worry about it. When I started role playing back in '96, I didn't know anything. All I knew was I loved Lord of the Rings, and I loved fantasy books and
Yeah.
comic books, and action, and I wanted to find out what this was all about. And my buddies were playing it, and they were like, "Dude, you got to do this." And so there I was. I gave it a shot, and it's been a major source of fun and inspiration ever since. It's a really great time. So I'm analytical. I like to learn things. So I would study the monsters, I would study the spells, the lore. I love all of that stuff. I would pore over the books for hours, any snippet, magazine, anything I could hear about, learn about. And that's why Ken calls me the lore master, because I just seem to know something about anything he pulls up, and he pulls up some weird stuff.
It's funny because I have a thing, and a lot of my friends know this, but it's one of those things, like you said, like, I'm not very analytical. Like I said, I'm not very smart. Like I said, I'm local himbo for a reason, but I do love bits. I'm a performer. So when it's like, hey, man, you got to do this, Ryan. You got to get into it. You got to figure out what character you want to be. And I'm like, I have no idea what I want to do. I don't know who I want to be. And I'm like, well, if I'm going into this, I know I need to pour some hours. I'm not going to just half-ass it. I want to walk in there and not feel stupid, because I already am. So let's just hide the fact that I am, you know, let me at least sound somewhat competent. And then every time, like I said, I put myself in there. So one thing that I knew was like, I got some of the best advice I've gotten was, Ryan, you're not the main character, so don't feel like you have to be. I'm like, good, because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to be a forward character. But they're like, but everybody plays a part. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, there's not going to be like a, ooh, fucking, ooh, my leg almost cramped. Sorry. Oh my God, excuse me. No, I'll put my leg on my stool again. Oh my goodness, that's embarrassing. Anyway, oh my God, my leg is still cramping. Oh my God, holy shit. Hold on a sec. I'm gonna just put the leg
Yeah,
out this way. Yeah. So,
there you go.
going back to what I was saying is that, you know, when I'm there, I know I'm not gonna try to. Me personally, I don't want to be the main guy at that point. I'm just no. I just want to see what's going on. I want to just be a part of the party, and I thought that was really cool and interesting about playing D&D. Is that, yeah, it's like, it's not necessarily you against the dungeon master. It's really you against the world, trying to form a story. And like, I mean, it's just like, all right, like, and it was almost to my detriment at the same time to be like not as involved, because I was like, I don't want to mess with everybody else, but I kind of want to step forward and do something. And I have to say, after like a few times, I've tried a few things, tried a few groups. I'm like, oh, all right. I see where I stand. I think that's why I left off on cleric last, because I understood like, oh, my character is like the healer and they're doing their thing and they're like they can fight, but more importantly, their thirst for knowledge was was like their big push. It wasn't I want to be the superhero. I just like my character. I gave it the dumbest name. My favorite thing is to give people stupid names. Not and but they're more. So there was this old, really quick. The person's name was Sarah Coffe. Because me and Blondie Sunday were watching this YouTube video about like famous famous rides or dark rides, and this guy kept pronouncing sarcophagus as sarcophagus, and I'm like, why does he keep saying this? I'm like, that's my new D&D character. It's sarcophagus. Yeah. It is a girl who loves that, because he was talking about the mummy ride in like Universal Studios, and they were just like, yeah, right? Like Imhotep is coming out of a sarcophagus. I'm like, that is the worst name. Like, that is my new D&D character. Please and thank you.
That's brilliant. Honestly, that's kind of how a lot of characters start. If you just get a hook, you have one idea, one concept, even just have that. Just bring that to the table. As you play, the character will flesh out in your mind. You'll find new things about them. Everybody wants to write a 90-page backstory. Don't bother. Have a general idea. Like you said, a hook, an idea. You know, even if it's just a stupid thing they say, a war cry or a catchphrase, that's enough. That's enough to get you going. And then as you role play with your friends, you're bouncing things off of each other. You're having conversations in character. You're starting to find out who that character is. And a lot of games can start out as a bunch of silly, jokey characters, and then you're level 15, it's the most serious thing in your life.
Yeah.
And you're all like, oh, the drama. Oh my God, what are we going to do? And you started off as a clown, you know?
Yeah.
And here you are, emotionally invested as a full-grown adult in a game of make-believe. But that's the thing, like our lives, especially, you know, working 9 to 5 and 40 hours a week and more, we need imagination. We don't, you know, when we were kids, we were allowed to have that time to play. And as adults, you almost have to steal it from your other responsibilities. And I love D&D because it lets my mind go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to do that. And we don't necessarily always have permission to have that time. You know, you're lazy because you didn't whatever, but I need rest. But I also need some fun with my buddies. And what a cool way to do that, to get inspired with something. You find a cool piece of art, it inspires you. You know, your friend inspires you. Next thing you know, you've come up with this concept for an original character. It's like, I am really invested in this. And what are they going to do? And what's going to happen? And you know, I'm involved in this plot, and you know, it started out as this stupid joke, sarcophagus, from some guy mispronouncing something, you know, and 6 months later, you're like thinking about it all the time.
Yeah, no, seriously, because like that's one thing I was like, this is like exactly what you said. Like I was just watching a YouTube video, and I'm just like, that's a stupid name. I love it. I'm just gonna run with it. And yeah, sarcophagus was based off exactly. It was just kind of the idea that it's about this person, you know, the mummy, as we know. The bisexual's dream movie.
Hell yeah.
If you watch the movie, it's still fucking awesome. Anyway, but you know, it's the whole, we're going back in time. It's archaeologists. I'm like, perfect. Thirst for knowledge. That's my character. And just, like I said, I kept thinking about it and just kept rolling it, and be like, I love this character. This character's great. You have any characters that like, you know, either silly names or ones that you were like really like attached to?
Oh gosh, yeah. Definitely attached to. My original character was in a system called Rollmaster, which, if you think D&D is complicated, this is the calculus of tabletop role-playing games. You had to have a stack of books this high to run everything. It was a lot of literal algebra involved in calculating character stats. I couldn't do it. I had to get my buddy to help me. And then not only did he help me,
while my role playing, I'm too busy trying to come up with an accent. Come on, dog.
I'm pretty good at that stuff. I have 4.0 GPA, and I'm still like struggling. Like, how do you make this character? Can I just add? He's like, no, you got to add this, then you got to multiply by this, then you got to divide by this. I'm like, I'm just trying to get a number, man. What the hell is going on? But he sat down, he took me under his wing. Not only did he teach me how to do the character stats and everything, he also sat next to me during sessions, taught me how to role play. And that was awesome. So my first character was Braun. He was the biggest dwarf you've ever seen. That was kind of the hook for him. He was scarred and ugly, but he had a gorgeous beard and hair. And
Hell yeah.
he was a warrior, and he ended up having a very complicated story and journey. My next big one that I always think of right away was an elven wizard named Wovoka. And they're a extremely powerful wizard with a one of the other players was like, hey, we should be brothers. That's the best hook. If you can get your friend to get in on you. So my buddy's like, we should be brothers. And I'm like, but we shouldn't know it. And we just rolled with it.
Nice.
And so we had no idea. We met randomly in a pub, as all good D&D campaigns start, and just clicked right away. And turns out we had weirdly a lot in common and looked pretty similar. But hey, we're elves, Elves look similar, right? And as the campaign goes on, these similarities start piling up. And he doesn't know his parents, but I know mine. And it turns out there's some secret family lore about a missing little brother I had. And it was great. And so that campaign rolled on, and we were able to start with just this silly nugget of an idea. Let's just be siblings, and we don't know it.
Yeah.
And it ended up being this giant saga, and then that character is just permanently cemented in my mind, and just the journey we went through.
Nice.
And I've, like I said, 20 years. I've played a lot of characters. I've run a lot of games. One of my favorites was in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness system, which, yes, you can play the turtles or any other kind of mutant animal
on the
you
internet
want.
Or something like that system you find on the internet?
No, it's a real system.
Oh,
it's for real.
Oh, hell yeah!
It's by Palladium Games. It's been out since the late '80s.
Whoa!
We were playing this in yeah, absolutely. I physically have it, and it's also online. In fact, there's a lot of expansions for it. There's a whole base setting, which is kind of just New York and the modern world. Then there's another setting that's post-apocalyptic, and everybody's a mutant animal.
Oh, cool.
That one's fantastic. We played one of the games I ran, actually, the group was, they were all beefalos, which is half cow, half buffalo.
Oh, okay.
And they were...
I thought they were just really muscular buffaloes.
Basically.
What's up? The beefalos are here. What's good,
real,
brother?
That's exactly what they were. And they were these big, beefy mutant animals. And they were kind of secret agents, too. And not that they could hide their identities or anything, but they would try to sneak around. They'd always get into shenanigans. We just had a great time with that. But there's all kinds of different systems. I used to run the Marvel Superheroes role-playing system. I did that for years, probably one of my most successful times running any games. I ran that for about 6 years.
Wow.
And
so y'all
everybody
really
had different kinds of... Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
And people made up their own superhero characters. They went on their own, dramatic superhero journeys that, were as much, action as it was intrigue and, coming to grips with being a mutant or, having powers from a scientific accident or whatever they were.
Yeah.
And just getting really into it. So it's not just Dungeons and Dragons out there. There's a whole world of different systems, all kinds of things you can look into. If fantasy's not your thing, there's absolutely everything else. You can even play, regular real life stuff. And you want to be garbage man, you can do that. If you want to be there's a pro wrestling TTRPG.
I've heard of that one, actually.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in being the garbage man, though. I want to be a garbage man, and I want to be able to kick field goals for the Philadelphia Eagles. Is that story?
I'm sure we can make it happen. But that's the thing. Anything can happen. It can be whatever you want it to be, and it can be as rule heavy or light as you want. The modern systems tend to pare back on the rules. The older systems sometimes are a bit more complicated, but you can also house rule anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's up to your comfort, and it's a collaborative thing. The person running the game isn't your enemy. They're your friend. Work together, figure out what makes everybody comfortable, and have a great time. It's just so much fun. I absolutely love it. Highly recommend it to anybody. Just a great time.
Now, like I said, D&D is something I've always been on the outskirts of, not in a negative way, but just it was one of those things. I know people who are really into it, like you mentioned. The hardest part is just getting people together, And for me, I get invited like Blondie Sunday every now and again. She'll goes with their friends and like, yo, we're all doing things. Like, do you want to go? I'm like, nah, I'm good. She's like, oh, we're doing session 0. But then like, of course, after a while, I'm just like, sometimes they're able to get nights going. Sometimes they aren't. So that's the whole like coordinating with everybody makes it a little bit more difficult, which I get. But then like between everything else that I'm doing, I'm like, I would love to kind of get a little bit more into it, but I feel like time wise, it's not working out for me because I've the amount of hobbies that I do have kind of get in the way, and I have to give time to each, and it's just one of those. I'm like, I don't know if I can. So every now and again, I will join one shots, and we'll play games that are like, hey Ryan, we'll do a one shot, and sometimes we'll end up in being like a second night just to finish out the story.
Yeah,
love it. Like personally, me as like a busy guy. One shots or a 2-day, 3-day type of ordeal, I could do that. Like 2-3 day session. One we played that was really fun was I think it was called Monster of the Week. I think that's based off of is it Supernatural or like one of those shows where it's like they that's where all their lore comes from, and they just kind of every person has like this cool like there's like the 6 archetypes you can pick from. Everybody has a thing, and it was one of my favorite things about that system was the system was built for you to fail so things can move. So if you're like doing good the entire time, like your guy won't level up as much because it's like, no, we want you to like go through hardship because we realize hardship makes things easy. But I also think because it's a monster of the week, it's like every week is something different. You're not building to a big story. So failure is kind of the better thing to do because it makes things interesting. Because I remember all my rolls were great. Everybody was leveling up and not me.
You're right.
Because it's meant to be like in that session, you're supposed to progress faster. And it's like, it's supposed to make things interesting. And it was really fun. I definitely would play that one again. I just remember them having a book and because like all like the lore, the monsters, like they're like, oh yeah, this is from this episode. This is from that episode. I'm like, oh, sick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was like, all right, that's cool. Like I'm down to clown with that one. I did another one shot that I also enjoyed. And it was the same thing. We got to a certain point. They were like, okay, guys, you're like 90% done, but we got to go. Can we do this in 2 weeks? I was like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, 2 weeks later, we got it. We done it. And I was like, yeah, that was like the last D&D I played. And I'm like, that was fun. Had a good time. But I've had one where like, yo, we're going to have this big campaign. All right, let's do it. Session 1, great. Session 2, mid. And it was over. And I was like, damn. What the hell? I was like, guess you're never picking that one up.
That's funny. You mentioned Supernatural. It's another show Felicia Day was on. She keeps coming up. Hi, Felicia. So, yeah, one shots are fantastic for that. There are several other ways to play tabletop role playing games or similar systems that do kind of allow for more flexibility like that. One of them is play by post, where you are basically on a message board, and instead of everybody getting together, you type up what you want your character to do. You might get a private message from someone, and then you have your roles in there and everything just like normal. It's just you're not all playing it at the same time. That way people with completely different availabilities can play through text. Those are really fun, and I do recommend them if you're way too busy to even do a one shot. The other option is what's called a West Marches style game. That is basically where there is a game world.
I'm sorry.
Sometimes it's run by. It's called West Marches.
West Marches.
West Marches.
Okay.
So
sorry, I just
it's a weird name.
Yeah, I just wanted to get it. I'm like, what they say?
Yeah. So it's basically like there's a game world and people can pop on and off as they have time. So we're playing every Tuesday, but even the person running the game is different. There might be 3 or 4 different DMs or judges or whatever you want to call the game master who's in charge of the game, and then players come and go. That actually, the original campaign I was part of was very much that style. We had people who were away at college for most of the year, but would come back for holidays or, breaks to see their family and have, Tuesday night or whatever free and be like, yo, can I jump in? I really want to play this character just for a night. Sure, absolutely. And then the character comes in, we have fun. He goes away at the end of the session, comes back, on spring break or whatever. And those kind of games can be a lot of fun, or even just a flexible DM who's like, yeah, if you miss a session, we either run your character for you, or you have a job. You got to go. You can't be
Yeah.
adventuring all the time.
Yeah.
You got to bank to guard or whatever your
I'm
character
gonna
does.
go home and bake bread. Bye. six
For
months
real,
later.
yeah, you
6
might
months
be a
later.
blacksmith. You gotta get some things ready for the shop. You don't have time to adventure all the time. Just
That's
any
cool.
story reason, make it so you can dip in and out. So
Yeah.
it's not always like you have to have that complete commitment.
Mhm.
There are ways to get around it, and of course, that's been going on since the very beginning in the '70s. People
Yeah.
are dipping in and out as they can, or playing by post. Even they used to play by mail. So,
Sick.
there's still all kinds of options. Yeah, absolutely. How crazy would that be to, get a glimpse of what was going on in those campaigns?
Yeah, you're trying to hide it because everyone's
Just,
like, "This is the devil's game. You can't be doing this."
yeah,
Oh,
reading along. Oh my God, right. Yeah, the
send
satanic
them
panic.
yeah.
Oh no.
I have
I mean,
spells.
that's what they told me. The DM was gonna teach me how to cast spells and coven with the devil, and I've been playing for 20 years and nothing's happened.
Yeah,
So disappointed.
I read these things. I was like, so when does Satan show up? This is kind of weird. All I'm doing is like, I can only walk this fast because my person is this tall.
Yeah,
Okay,
for
okay.
real.
Um, is that
This
when
is
the?
really nerdy for something I thought was going to be a lot more metal.
All right,
What's going on?
let me flip a few pages. Okay, to disengage in the middle of a fight, you can
For
disengage
real.
and refer to being more defensive, increasing your. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I missed in the last chapter.
Who knew selling my soul would have this much math?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I think I can walk more than that, but okay, I guess not. What's
Yeah.
what's like a story that you as a DM have done that you're really proud of?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. So,
That or like what's most fun, you
honestly,
know?
my favorite thing that can happen when you're running a game is when I don't have to do anything.
Oh, nice.
When I get to the point where I've built up the world and the situation and the NPCs around you, that the players take off with the game, and now they're having a full in-game conversation for an hour, and I haven't done a single thing but set up where they are, what the room looks like, and they start having a debate about what they're going to do and how they're going to get through this next part and what's going to happen, and they're having interpersonal dialogue and drama going on. I won the game. Like, that's
Yeah,
winning D&D to me. Is just every I got a room of full-grown adults to be so immersed that they forgot that there's even rules to this, and they're just enjoying it. They're in that moment, and I get to sit back and watch and take notes and just be like, this is the best. I
that's
love
really
those
cool.
moments.
No, that's a
Almost every
really
game
base
I've run
take.
has had that. Once you relax, once you shuffle off the this is uncomfortable and you really get into it, you get that reward of just living inside of this dramatic, interesting,
Yeah,
deep moment where you just forgot about your bills, your job. You're not thinking about going to the doctor appointment next week or your
yeah,
tooth hurts. You've forgotten everything except for what your elf's gonna do next, and that's just the best. I love that.
nice. No, I know what you mean because, like, lack of better words, like you've set up like the lore or even just the scene, and like especially someone like with like a history of just like being on stage and whatnot. If you can just do the mise en scène, what's on screen, and just like this tells the story just by looking at it, and it's just everyone else has to interpret it and just react to it. Yeah, no, that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty lit. I like the way that you put that into words. I was like, yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. Where, look, this is what the place looks like. You know what's going on. This is the bad guy. He's trying to do bad guy things. You know, what do you do? So,
Yeah,
any, yeah.
exactly.
You ever try to
We're
like goof on somebody, like some of your teams? Like, you'd be like, all right,
oh
walk through this door. Everything's perfectly fine. And everything, when they open that door, everything was not fine. And
oh
everyone's like,
yeah,
and everyone's
oh
like, dude,
yeah.
and they're just like, yo, Randy, you're the worst. I hate you. Y'all,
I've
as
definitely
DM, you
pulled
enjoy
off
doing that?
some. I've definitely pulled off a few kind of blind sides, or just introduced a little bit of. Here's the thing: if you're taking D&D super duper seriously, you're missing out on the humor of it. And every bit of that game was designed with humor in it.
Mhm.
You don't have to believe me. You can look up any spell description and check out the material components. They're almost always a pun. Um, they have a bunch of them. In order to cast Fireball, you need a pinch of sulfur and bat guano. Um, in order to, cast Sleep, you have to have a little bit of wool because like a blanket tucks you in. Things like that. It's meant to have a little bit of pun, a little bit of tongue in cheek. And sometimes the big bad just says, I really saw the voice. And that's just how it is. And occasionally that's gotten me in trouble to where I thought no one would care about this stupid NPC. So I gave him the most ridiculous voice I could possibly think of. And all of my players fell in love with him and dragged him along on the rest of their adventures, much to the chagrin of my throat.
You're like, okay, I gotta fucking do this for the rest of the session.
I still don't know years later if they did that on purpose or not. I kind of think they did.
They're just like, yo, we're gonna.
But he was a fun character.
Oh, that's cool. What kind of character was it?
So he was a were-rat. So he was born a halfling, which is basically a hobbit from Lord of the Rings. And him and his two brothers got bit by a were-rat, and so they became were-rat, kind of like werewolves.
Yeah.
But instead of turning into wolves, they turned into rats, or hybrid forms.
Yeah.
His name was Rip. His brothers were Whip and Trip. They killed Whip and Trip, and they saved Rip. And Rip was he's just a conniving little guy. He'll do whatever it takes to survive. He's not really evil. His brothers were kind of bullies to him. He was the little one. The other two were larger, even though they were all half. So they were still smaller than the player characters. None of them were small. And
so he had a voice like this, and he talked like that all the time, and he went really fast.
And so I had to keep doing this voice over and over, and they would find a million reasons to talk to him about absolutely anything.
I was gonna say,
or they'd send him on missions. They were terrible.
See what they're saying. Oh, you know where we're going? They just fucking.
Oh
whatever.
My god! Oh, they'd be like, "Well, we can't get into this building, but you know what? A rat could. Let's go get Rip." I'm like, "Oh, come on, you guys are killing me." Because of course he will, because they're gonna give him gold, and that's all he wants.
Oh, nice. Motivated by money. Love it.
Definitely, good times. And you can do that as a player too. I mean, come up with a thing. Come up with, the systems often will have things like that built into them.
Yeah.
I remember my elven wizard I was talking about. He had hay fever. It would come up from time to time. Also, he had what was called a taboo, where in order to cast his magic, his lips had to be painted black with lipstick at all times.
Really?
If that got washed off, he could not cast spells because it made him nervous. It was like I said, it was a taboo. It was like a superstition. So he was constantly, and I was miming it while we were playing. He'd dip in a thing and then go like this. And at first people were like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "It's his taboo. He has to do this."
That's great.
He has to do this every time. He also laughed at inappropriate times, which was one of the most fun role-playing things I ever did at that time.
Yeah.
Because it would be like, we'd find out somebody died and Wovoka would just start giggling.
Oh, no.
It would be some big dramatic, or it would be like, we're going to meet the king, and the king's like, I have something serious to tell you about this. And I'm like... like a little kid in church.
Yeah.
It's exactly the way it was.
Everyone's kind of like,
but that's fun. That's the hook. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, cool. I have all these things, and it, gives you a chance to explore that character, that idea, and also makes them a little bit relatable. I like that he did this thing that made him socially awkward sometimes, and he looked weird and acted weird, but that's the great thing. I could play that out. And I could relate to that, being a little bit social awkward from time to time. I related to, laughing at the wrong time. I used to do that when I was a kid all the time in church. Very easy memory to tap into.
Yeah. Let
me connect to the character. And what a great time. And what just a tiny little thing. And that's all it takes. Just that little thing you can relate to. And I always say every one of our original characters comes from within. So that's part of you. And if you can find that little hook where there's a connection between you and that character, you can really jump into their mind and really enjoy that role-playing experience.
I had one other character that, speaking of what you were saying, being, hey, it's kind of you, And like, this is the one I played before Sarcophagus. Once again, you're gonna love this name. It's so dumb. His name was Daniel Knight Lewis.
Okay.
And some people would get that reference right away. Some people don't.
Instead of Daniel Day-Lewis,
Yeah.
I gotcha.
And it was a play on that because I don't like doing the whole intimidation thing. Like, oh, I'm gonna be intimidated. I'm gonna say something because like sometimes when I'm rolling and saying mean things, it's like it's kind of weird acting that way. So Daniel Day-Lewis is known to be a method actor. Like
Yes.
he, there was a story about him. Like he played like Lincoln or some shit, or I forgot what it was. Excuse me. He was playing in a play, and he thought he saw like the ghost of his actual father. So he left, and he left the production, and everyone's like, "Where'd he go?" But I heard that story. I don't know if it's true or not. No fact check me, but I remember that. So I was like, all right, this is Daniel Knight Lewis. He's he's a dark elf, blah blah blah. He's a bard, and why he's going on an adventure is because his family is super rich, but he wants to be an actor. But the family is like, we have the most gold. We are a merchant family. We make so much money. He's like, no, mom and dad, I want to be an actor. And so everything he does that has to do with like lying, intimidation, or anything like that is just him method acting. So the idea was, why'd you join this crew? If I join a crew and I join this thing, I'll have knowledge to make me a better actor. So I'm going to use this knowledge for my stage plays later in life. And that was just kind of his thing. So,
That's fantastic.
He'd be in a bad situation. It's like, I'm going to roll. It's like, don't worry, fellas. I'm going to intimidate these men. And he shut up. And I would just say something dumb and like a joking voice. I go, don't fight me. Look, I'm super strong. And just roll and just look down and see what happens. It's like 2. It's like, fuck. They're like, they didn't believe you. I'm like, well then, fellas, it's time for me to go. So he was like,
my acting chops were not up to snuff today.
And he was just goofy the whole time. It was almost like
that's
like
great.
Yeah, that was like my idea of being like, I want to be goofy, but at the same time, I want my guy to be serious. But most of his seriousness is coming from. So of course, I'll say something super dumb or sound super dumb saying it, but in character, it's like, wow, that guy's really dumb. Roll a 20. Everyone believed him.
Yep.
So of course, everybody in the
something about the way you said it.
And then everybody in the party is like, "Oh my god, everyone's an idiot. They're all believing his acting." It's like, I told you my acting ability was fantastic, and it's feeding his ego that way.
Absolutely. That's so fun. I love that stuff. And I love like I'll talk about D&D and I get to hear stories. I mean, there's horror stories too, but I love stories like that. Just like what brought you into this character, like what made you go, this is unforgettable. This is something that, I'll never forget, hanging out with my friends and just living in a shared imagination.
Yeah. That's one character I
just want to constantly such a treat.
Back. Yeah, those are the 2 characters, the one I mentioned, for the ones I want to bring back every time. It's like, I want to be Daniel Knight Lewis, or I'm going to be fucking Sarcophagus. Those are the 2 that I'm like, these are the 2 that I got. It's like, I have one more, but maybe later, just not this time. Those are always my go-to.
That's awesome.
Like, I like these characters. Like I said, I don't get to play them much, but when I get a chance to, I've conceded the fact that every now and again I'll be able to play them, do a little something fun with them, and then just kind of move on with my life. But a little bit of D&D here, it's cool with me. I won't be able to do it all the time. How often do you play D&D though? Like yourself personally, is like one of the things you make a lot of time for?
These days, not as much as I used to. With my original group, we had a rule where we wouldn't get together for less than 6 hours. Okay. So they're really serious about it. I mean, these guys would just, it would be a whole day, and that's what it ended up becoming. We started out on like Tuesday nights for 6 to 8 hours, and then we moved to Saturdays, and it became an all day thing. We'd get together at lunchtime and we wouldn't leave till 2 in the morning. Wow. Which is such a marathon thing. And these days, most people are like, 3 hours? I can't do 3 hours. And I'm just in the back of my mind, like, we used to do 12. No problem. Then again, that sounds we were good. 20. Like, we weren't married. We didn't have kids. We didn't have responsibilities. I didn't have work tomorrow. Who cares? But, it's so much harder these days. So, if you can carve a few hours out, but that gets to be the challenge. When are we going to do it? how are we going to get everybody together?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, finding time where everyone has time. And right now I'm working second shift, and that's a whole nother challenge. I am switching to first shift in 2025 right now.
Let's go.
So in the next, I think 6 or 7 weeks or so, I'll be on first.
Let's go.
And that will free up a bit more time. So we'll see what happens
We got
then.
some
But
good things
I'm
coming
not
in
going to hold my breath.
2025.
But
Let's do it.
oh yeah, absolutely. I'm feeling the new year. I, as much as I have hope and joy for what I hope is coming, I also have fear and trepidation because
Of
what
course.
is going on?
Yep.
But just trying to stay positive, and that's kind of the way I try to do my life. I've been through a lot of stuff, and staying positive, staying engaged has always helped. And same thing with D&D. Bring that, fun with you. Have the fun you want to have, bring a positive attitude and a collaborative attitude. Like what you were talking about, you're not the main character. You're not the leader of this group. You're just a player. You're just here with your buddies. If you can get that role playing going with your friend, hey, that's the best. If you can get the whole group involved, oh, it's fantastic. And that's the way it's supposed to be. It's not about, you know, who's getting the most time and attention and doing their story and background and all that stuff. It's everybody gets a turn. And, when like when my friend was like, hey, let's be brothers, it brought me into it more. And as a newer player, especially at the time, I was like, wow, this is really cool. I've never done this before. He'd done it a dozen times, but he knew that would bring me more into it. So it's just the best. I love doing it.
Hell yeah.
Besides video games and everything else. I mean, hey, if you played Baldur's Gate 3, that's got a lot of the mechanics in it.
Yeah.
If you kind of know how to play that game, that's kind of it, like all you do is the role play on top of the rules. Like it's kind of the same thing. Yeah, they're simplified. It's not quite the same in the actual game, but it's close enough that if you're familiar with that, and there's a bunch of games like that out now. There's another game called Celasto, which is also based on the same rule set. It's really fun. I think it was on Game Pass last time I checked, so it could even be free. You're not paying anything if you already have it.
Hell yeah.
But it works on the same rules, and that's another way that I've recommended to people to get that kind of, fear of, oh no, I don't know how my character works. Make your character in a video game. Try that out. See how that goes. You want to try a fighter? Try it in Baldur's Gate. Try it in one of these other games. Give it a shot. Kind of see how the mechanics work. It won't be quite the same in D&D, but it's close enough that you'll have a leg up. Check it out.
That's definitely what happened with me when I played Baldur's Gate 3. Was I played Shelby's like, oh, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't want to be a fighter. Like I feel like I said, my brain was already into I want to be support type of character, so I played a bard, which I was really happy with because now I was doing it. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like I don't have to directly attack. I'm gonna chill in the back. I'm gonna shoot you with my crossbow. But then I have all these spells that I can cast. And I was telling you, like, oh man, I could heal. Great, fantastic. I didn't know they could do that. And then I was
Bards
like, casting all
are fantastic.
And it's like, oh, you can do this and give them like inspiration. I'm like, yeah, play the violin. Woo! Watch me fiddle. And I was like, oh, this is kind of sick. So like, if I were to play, like, say, if I'm playing Daniel Knight-Lewis again, I just kind of have a better idea of like, all right, I can see what I kind of do and get everybody going. Because sometimes my hardest choices are as simple as, do I want a rapier or do I want a fucking crossbow? Which one would be better for me? And then I'm just like, now I'm like, nope, hand crossbow. Give me the hand crossbow. I'm gonna hang out in the back. I'm gonna shoot a guy, and then I'm gonna play the fucking fiddle, and we're gonna fucking kick their asses. But I'm gonna be
That's great.
Now I'm gonna be in the back like, your mom sucks. Like, oh, my brain, it hurts. I'm like, got his ass. You suck.
I love vicious mockery.
Yeah,
it's a great spell.
You can just say dumb shit. I'm like, you can just say dumb shit in the background. They're like, damn man, you hurt my feelings. I'm like, good. Now stab him.
I had a friend that wrote a list of D&D related puns. She wrote 100 of them.
Oh, nice.
To play her bard with vicious mockery, and she just picked one randomly.
That's fantastic. I love that.
And they were terrible dad jokes. Every single one of them. They're awful. But it was so funny, and it was such a neat thing to do for a character. just a simple tool to have that. Yeah, when she does this, she does a stupid pun instead of an insult, just because it racks your brain.
Yeah, everybody groans, exactly. But the one person's affected super hard. Like, oh, that hurt.
Every time we'd be like, that hurt the monster as much as it did me.
Listen here, monster. You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish.
It was exactly like that.
The hell's your problem? Ow, my brain hurts. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah, exactly.
Now stab him. Stab him. Give him in the back room. Get. And that was like more of my thing. Like, watch me do this distraction. You want to see sleight of hand magic? Whoa. Neat tricks. No. That's always me.
Yeah, that stuff's so fun. But yeah, it's there's a lot more today than there was when I started in the 90s. Whereas I just jumped into the fire, into the crucible, and just went for it and had a buddy help me out. Now you've got so many tools and different ways to kind of get past that, the jitters or the unknown.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to see, just TTRPGs in general being more popular than ever.
Yeah.
And not just D&D, but other systems as well, because it's worth looking into all kinds of options. You might find something that you and your friends like more, and there's all kinds of settings and different kinds of really cool ideas that you might never think of your own just by searching online. You might never know what you find. Or picking the brain of someone who's 48 years old and has been playing TTRPGs for well over 20 years.
So I have to ask, and to kind of run off the end of the podcast, now that we're here in 2025, if anyone here is listening has never tried I'm going to feel like I'm sounding stupid, TTRPG.
Right? You got it?
It sounds silly to me. TTRPG, this would be a good time to, give it a shot. It's a new year. Try something different, even if it isn't D&D. Try a different system. I think Cyberpunk has its own system too, if you're into that shit. But Randy, for y'all, I just really want to say, like, what is it you think people should bring into if they're trying something new, like on a tabletop RPG? What is something you think, especially with your 20 years of experience, you think someone who almost either just has a little bit knowledge or is just getting into it?
So if you're looking to get into it, if you just have a little bit of experience and you're looking to kind of, make this a bigger part of your life, it's kind of like anything else. You got to make the space for it. But there's a lot of resources online. YouTube alone has fantastic channels. I follow a guy called The Great GM. He has 2 channels, one for game masters and one for players. And he has lots of videos about, hey, this is how you get through, make an original character, or these are things to avoid. You can do your own research, but I honestly think the best thing you can do, find a buddy to talk to about it. Talk to a friend, mention it to people you meet. We go to these cons, I go to AAC, I go to Pop Cult, and, I talk to people about Dungeons and Dragons, and I've got kind of a waiting list at this point for whenever I'm going to run the game. And it's like, but I want to talk about it all the time. And even just chatting about it, I mean, that's how your friendship's going to work. And also it gives you something to chat about, something to get into. And if, my friend learns something, he wants to talk to me about it, hell yeah, reach out. Same thing with your friends. And that's really the core of it. It's just being friends. You want your friends to have a good time. You want to have a good time. Everybody wants to have a little, break from the monotony. So the best thing you can do is reach out, talk to your buddies, talk before you play the game, after you play the game. Let the DM know they did a good job. Talk about your character outside of the game. We would plan things between sessions. Hey, what if my character had a crush on yours? What if my character hates you? Like, that kind of thing. Like, what could we spin out of this? Because I think what I've seen, at least in the last maybe 10 years or so, is people getting away from the idea of talking about the session between the session. And I feel like that is important. So talk to your buddies, find out who's as nerdy as you are or nerdier, and, chat about it. Talk about it. Your friends. Leave a message. Send them stupid D&D memes. I do this constantly. It's so fun. but that can spark a conversation. Oh, wait, that is kind of a cool idea now that I think about it. Oh, maybe we should talk more about this. Just do that. It's about being friends. It's about giving that time, having that space away from the daily grind. Letting your brain do something. And it's honestly, as engaging as it is, it's also relaxing. You're getting your mind off that, I'm not thinking about work. I'm not thinking about bills. I'm thinking about elves and magic and what's better. Like, that's great. And I'm hanging out with my friends. I'm drinking Mountain Dew. I'm eating Twinkies. Let's rock.
Hell yeah, Mountain Dew. I'm more of a Dr. Pepper man, drinking with intellectual.
That was my original favorite.
Oh,
yeah.
Let's go, Dr. Pepper.
Love Dr. Pepper.
More Dr.
Absolutely.
Pepper in year 2025. Let's go.
That's right. Exactly. This is the year of the doctor.
Let's go. But Randy, thank you so much for joining me. Oh, sorry, I'm cutting you off.
I'm going to do a stupid story before I go.
Please,
I used to work at a Subway. Because you mentioned Mr. Pibb. I used to work at a Subway. We had Mr. Pibb. People would ask for Dr. Pepper, and I'd be like, well, we've got Mr. Pibb, and while he doesn't have his doctorate yet, he is going to night school. And about half the time, I just get a completely blank stare.
Hey, man.
But I love making dumb jokes.
That's up to them, man. That's up to them, though, because, I think it's a great joke. I'd be like, you know what?
You gotta have fun.
Based. All right, let me get some more of that Mr. Pibb.
Let's support him in his journey to get his doctorate. One day, it'll be Dr. Pibb.
every time you pull from the fountain, it's just more going into his foundation to finish night school.
Yep, night school isn't cheap.
No. But as we were saying, thank you so much, Randy, for being a part of the podcast. I really do appreciate it. I really appreciate your support. More importantly, talking about D&D. It's been really cool. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you for having me on. I'm the biggest fan of the podcast, so it was a real thrill to be able to jump on and be on myself after watching every episode and making comments. And keep doing it, man. I can't wait to see who you've got coming up next.
Oh, me too. It's really pushed me to reach out to as many people as possible and just
do it.
Talk to my friends, and I'm just having such a great time. And I plan on keeping this going for as long as I can.
Hell yeah. Do it.
Well, thank you so much. Y'all have a great night.